Bucky Barnes must fight for his redemption with Black Widow and hunt down other Winter Soldiers. Welcome to the Comicstorian Full Story channel, where you get old and new full stories from Comicstorian in one place to give you a better viewing experience. Today we're covering The Winter Soldier, issues 1 through 19 from 2012 by Ed Brubaker. I hope you enjoy.
In the Red King Casino, Bucky thinks to himself of an old theory he once heard during the Cold War. That one agent in the right place at the right time with the right skills could be more effective than an entire army. But while Bucky thinks of a long time ago, him and Natasha Romanoff begin to make their way down into the lower levels of the casino. As the two begin to fight their way through, Bucky takes a moment to watch Natasha at work. She moves with such grace, jumping from one person to the next, weaving in and out of the enemy's crosshairs, so brutally efficient. But after taking down the armed guards, Bucky and Natasha reach their objective, a Project Zephyr stasis tube. However, the problem is, it's already empty, which means someone has already woken up one of the sleepers. Later, as the two agents head home, Bucky flips through the news channel watching reports about him and his life. The world believes that James Bucky Barnes is dead, died a war hero. Or at least, that's what was told. Only a select few know of the truth, and that is that Bucky is very much alive to this day. Natasha grabs the remote, turning the TV off, asking if he's really going to sit there and watch that garbage. Bucky asks what's up with her. Ever since they found the stasis tube, she's been acting all tense. Natasha sighs, stating that it's like the stasis tube they put him in. She once saw him in those tubes and it scared the hell right out of her. Bucky laughs, telling her that he thought nothing could scare the great Black Widow, and Natasha says, yeah, that's what she thought too. Bucky tries to make light of the situation, but the truth is he's twice as tense as Natasha. That mission brought back nothing but bad memories for him. Flashbacks to those frozen moments in time, back when he was the Soviet secret weapon. He would train other soldiers to kill with precision and skill. He would walk and talk like an average American. Then he could see them, the three sleeper agents in the tubes, just like he was, ready to be shipped to America, where they would lay in wait, ready to be awakened at a moment's notice. But the war ended, and just like he was, the three sleeper agents were forgotten, left in the cold. That is until the ex-KGB general, going by the codename Red Barbarian, sold their activation codes and locations on the black market. So later that night, Jasper Sitwell, Bucky and Natasha's intel contact, contacts the two of them to go over the situation thus far. The man that they think is the sleeper agent's handler is Nick Stanton, also known as Nico Stanovich. Nico was last seen entering the casino 2 days ago, and he's been living undercover as Stanton since the early 80s. Married, great job, 2 kids on honor roll, just quietly living the American dream. That was until that morning when he got the phone call, which after he killed his whole family, he burned all the files in his office and he drove straight to the casino to extract the sleeper agent. Currently, they're working on facial recognition to try and locate Nico, so until then, they have another lead to follow up on. The next day in the rainy world of Minnesota, Bucky and Natasha keep an eye on their next target, Mickey Bondurant, or rather Mikhail Bulgakov, another KGB agent from the same Spetsnaz group as Nico. Mikhail works through the rain, piling up stacks of files in his truck when Natasha calls out to him, telling him that it looks like he's getting ready to go somewhere. Without saying a word, he grabs his gun, opening fire, and begins to run away, but before he could get very far, he runs into Bucky. Bucky grabs him by the throat, with Mikhail shouting that he can't believe he's alive. You're supposed to be dead! And Bucky tells him that that's the best thing about being dead. You can do anything you want. Mikhail gives up what little information he has, which isn't much. He was originally sent to monitor over the Project Zephyr sleepers. He wasn't sure who the buyers were, but he's just happy enough to be out of their reach. But he at least knows where the location of the next sleeper is. So later the two of them head out to the facility that they thought to be the location, and as Bucky scans the area, he says that the group inside is called RAID, which used to be a part of AIM. Natasha asks if he thinks that RAID could be the buyers, but Bucky tells her no. He's beginning to think that they are just a plan B. The two begin to make their way into the facility, but before long, one of the guards that Natasha takes down manages to send out a call for help. Within seconds, 2 more armed guards show up, opening fire on the two of them. Bucky and Natasha fight their way out, taking out as many guards as they can, and just as they get outside, they begin to hear a deep voice calling in Russian, "Death to America!" Bucky looks back and sees a giant gorilla with a machine gun firing at them. And that is the moment that Bucky realizes that they have no idea what they are up against. Meanwhile, in New York, Professor Ivan Kragoff, the ex-Soviet super scientist Red Ghost, pours himself a glass of wine stating that they haven't heard from the second extraction team yet. Madame Lucia von Bardas, the cyborg that was Latveria's ex-prime minister, says that she waited long enough to get her revenge. She just hopes that these sleeper agents are as effective as he says that they'd be. At that moment, across town in front of the Latverian embassy, Victor Von Doom steps out while a man aims his crosshairs on him. The man pulls the trigger, firing off an RPG, and he hits directly into the center of the embassy. But while that explosion is going off and Victor Von Doom is seemingly dead, we cut back to Minnesota, where Bucky tells Natasha that he will take on the gorilla. She needs to get to the rooftop and clear a path for them. Bucky runs out of cover, throwing a smoke grenade at the gorilla, firing into the smoke to draw its attention. While Natasha begins to clear the men off of the roof, the gorilla roars, charging through the smoke, cracking Bucky across the face. Bucky's body is thrown into a nearby building, but rather than getting out, he waits for the gorilla to get closer so that he can fire, landing a direct hit. But the gorilla doesn't come. Instead, he hits the switch and begins to rocket off into the sky, with Bucky asking, "Am I going crazy, or did I see a gorilla use a jetpack?" Natasha tells him that yes, they did see a gorilla use a jetpack, and Bucky says that this is officially one of the worst missions he's ever been on. Later, back at Sitwell's Situation Room, Sitwell goes over the intel about what happened earlier in Manhattan. Someone made an attempt on Victor Von Doom's life right in front of the embassy. And just as anyone would expect, Doom was not happy. There's no information on the assailant, but there is a single image from a security camera across the street. It shows the shooter who infiltrated and executed this nearly unseen. Hopefully the shooter's face means something. Bucky looks at the man and says, yeah, he's one of them. His name's Arkady, and he is the supreme bastard. The three men chosen for the Zephyr procedure: Arkady, the vicious Spetsnaz killer, Leo, the KGB born and raised, and then Dmitri, the loyal soldier for his country. Sitwell says, okay, so the situation is we have a semi-intelligent gorilla. We have Raid on payroll, and their first sleeper agent just tried to assassinate Dr. Doom on US soil. Does that add up to our situation, Bucky? Bucky tells him, well, there's one person that comes to mind regarding the ape. And Natasha asks, Red Ghost? Bucky goes on telling her, yeah, I should have thought of it earlier. Kragoff consulted on Project Zephyr. Sitwell says, okay, well, that's a lead. But why would Ivan and Kragoff want to kill Dr. Doom? And Natasha tells him that anyone who knows Dr. Doom well enough would want him dead. But they would also know that an RPG would just make Victor Von Doom angry. So maybe that was the intent. Bucky says an inciting incident instead of murder. Yeah, that would make sense. So the next night in Chicago, Bucky and Natasha go undercover to follow up on a lead provided by Nick Fury. The Bad Juju Acquisitions Group is known for selling black market tech, and with any luck, they will find out who bought the codes for the sleeper agents. Just as the auctioneer brings out the next item for sale, though, Bucky gets up stating that he can't take this anymore, and he pulls out his gun, firing, telling everyone not to move. Of course, he didn't expect that to work, which is fine, and there was only one person there that they were actually after, and that was the auctioneer himself. As the auctioneer begins to escape, his bodyguard jumps in the way of Bucky, swinging an electrified baton. Bucky kicks the bodyguard's feet out from underneath him, taking the baton and shocking him with it. Up ahead, the auctioneer runs to the door in the rain. Bucky throws the baton, electrocuting the puddle, stopping the man in his tracks. He then picks up the auctioneer, telling him, "Don't pass out yet. I got some questions for you. A month ago, you sold activation codes for 3 Soviet sleeper agents. Who's the buyer?" The auctioneer says that they don't take names, but it was an old man. A scientist type. Russian accent. Bucky tells him that that's not anything new. Who was he with? The auctioneer says that he wasn't with anyone. He just figured that he had some kind of grudge against Latveria, considering what else they bid on. Elsewhere, as Lucia looks up at something in the shadows, Arkady says that he doesn't understand. What was that? Lucia says that she guesses that he wouldn't know about these. Victor Von Doom didn't come into power until after he was sleeping. But trust her, once they get this Doombot activated, then things are really going to get interesting. Later up at Nick Fury's satellite base, Nick Fury asks, are they sure about this? And Natasha says that what they do know is that their unknown enemy activated the sleepers that Bucky trained. Bucky then adds that the codes were purchased by the Red Ghost, who also bought a freaking Doombot. Nick turns back, so Arkady pretends to try and kill Von Doom. Whoever planned the hit is going to control the response. That way they can send the Doombot to cause some destruction because Von Doom is too proud to admit that one of his bots got stolen. Bucky says who would be crazy enough to want a war between the US and Latveria. That can't be too long a list, right? Nick begins to hit some keys on the computer, telling him that there's actually only one candidate, Lucia von Bardas. Bucky asks, who is that? Nick explains that von Bardas had a bit of a blowback when Doom lost his throne a while back. They fixed it so that she would be made Prime Minister of Latveria, but Lucia wants the puppet they wanted. She was secretly supplying Doom's old tech to a bunch of US supervillains. She thought that she could cause just enough trouble so that she wouldn't get noticed, but that wasn't the case. The secret task force was sent to take her out, and they ended up bringing the whole castle down on top of her. She wasn't so easy to kill though, and the next time that they spotted her, she was part cyborg. They managed to take her down again after she nearly killed Luke Cage, but when S.H.I.E.L.D. was dismantled by Norman Osborn, she fell through the cracks and she disappeared. Meanwhile, back at Lucia's hideout, the Doombot comes to life shouting, "How dare you impugn the honor of Victor Von Doom!" Lucia laughs, telling the Doombot to calm itself, and seconds later, the Doombot reverts to a normal state, stating, "This is confusing. Why am I doing as I'm told?" Arcadia asks if this thing actually believes that it's the real Victor Von Doom, and Lucia says she knows. Isn't the universe insane? Von Doom programmed over a dozen of these things. Back over with Bucky and Natasha, they fly over to New York with Bucky stating that this is insane. Really? Teleportation rigs? Sitwell tells them that they got these gadgets from Reed Richards himself, so he's more concerned about user error than equipment malfunction. The hatch to the jet begins to open up, and Bucky asks if they're sure that they can't just ring the doorbell. And Sitwell asks, to the Latverian embassy? Yeah, I'm sure we can't. A few seconds later, Bucky and Natasha jump off the jet over the embassy, and just as they begin to get close, the rigs activate, throwing the two of them inside of the building. They both wait for a moment when Natasha stating that they are clear, and they should hurry and move out. After taking out a few of the guards and getting their key cards, Bucky and Natasha sneak their way into Doom's chambers. Inside, Doom sits in his chair, grumbling to himself, and then he grabs his mask. Once he puts it on, he steps out of the computer room into his chambers and asks, "Really? Do you take Doom for a fool?" Doom fires off a blast, and Bucky and Natasha avoid the hit, with Bucky yelling, Wait! Bucky grabs his gun, but Doom kicks him in the throat and begins to choke him, telling him, "You are the Winter Soldier. You are supposed to be dead." "We are correct in that, aren't we?" And Bucky struggles, telling him, "You got it all wrong. We didn't come to attack you." Doom stops for 1 second. "Is that so? Then why come here?" And Bucky says that they are here because they need his help, and to let him know that he's about to be framed. Meanwhile, in the back of the van, Arcady asks the Doombot if he understands the orders, and the Doombot yells, "Do not condescend, Doom! I know exactly what I must do." Arcady tells him good. They simply just have to wait until morning, and then the entire world will see the wrath of Victor Von Doom. And then the van that the two are in begins to leave the United Nations building. Back over at the embassy, Nick asks if everything is going okay on their end, and Natasha says that she's not exactly sure okay is the word that she would use, but hey, they aren't dead. Doom continues to yell at Bucky, and Bucky tells him, "Look, we just need to know if you can remotely shut down a Doombot." Doom turns to his computer, telling him that he first breaks into Doom's domain, and then you doubt Doom! But as Doom looks at where the signal from the Doombot is coming, he says, "How disappointingly obvious, but then again Lucia was never very impressive." Bucky asks, "Wait, where are they?" And he looks at the screen to see that they are at the United Nations headquarters, and he says, "Oh, crap!" A short while later, Bucky looks up at a ship and says, "You've got to be kidding! There's no way that this is legal on US soil." Doom tells him, "Your laws do not apply to me. Or here. But then again, I suppose that you are lucky that the one seeing it is a dead man." The two shoot off into the sky with Natasha reporting that the boys are on their way. Here's to hoping that they can avoid an international incident. Over at the office of the Latverian ambassador, a woman lays dead at her desk, and the Doombot says that there is something amiss. Arcady tells them that they are right on schedule. They've agreed to let him address the assembled body. They jest, but the Doombot stops him, telling him, "Not that. There is something else wrong." At that moment, a red circular outline appears on the wall, and a second later, it implodes. Doom hangs out on his jet shouting, "Prepare to meet your destruction, fools!" As Doom steps down, Arcady opens fire on the real Doom and Bucky, but before the bullets can hit them, Doom creates a shield stopping the attack. Doom asks, "Have you learned nothing? None may touch Doom, but those that he wishes." The Doombot tries to fight back, but as the Dooms clash, another explosion goes off, throwing Bucky to the side. Through the chaos, Arcady begins to escape and Bucky jumps to his feet chasing after him. But as he begins to get close, Arcady turns back, opening fire on some of the office workers. Bucky loads in an explosive round, firing it into the wall, knocking Arcady off balance enough to catch up. Arcady pulls out a knife telling him that he's supposed to be dead, and then he lunges at him shouting, "Traitor!" As Arcady tries to hit him, Bucky easily dodges and swings and begins to beat into Arcady. After a knee to the face, Bucky disarms Arcady of the knife, and as Arcady is thrown to the ground, he grabs a hold of Bucky's gun. Bucky then throws Arcady back, watching as he takes aim and pulls the trigger. Bucky doesn't even bother dodging because he knows what is about to happen. As that trigger is pulled, the gun explodes, and it's because the gun was designed to only be fired by Bucky using his palm print. The shrapnel of the gun kicks back and one piece lodges itself in Arcady's neck, giving him only a few moments before he bleeds out. Bucky runs over as Arcady gasps for air, and he tells him that he needs to listen. The woman controlling him is not serving Mother Russia. Didn't they train him better than this? Arcady was supposed to be an American. This was all just a distraction, setting the stage for her next step. As Arcady begins to cough, Doom walks up stating, "It would seem that we have both taken care of our minions." Arcady then says that he is feeling that they are both traitors here. But it doesn't matter, Mistress Lucia got what she needed from his robot. It is too late. Bucky looks at Doom asking what is it that she needed? What the hell does that mean? What else could you have programmed those things for? Over in the Latvian Alps, the two armed guards are shot as she walks up telling the second sleeper agent, Dimitri, "Nice shot." Red Ghost asks if she's planning on shutting down the surveillance, and Lucia tells him of course. She shorted them out long before they were within visual range. Dimitri then says that this is their mission, comrade, and Red Ghost tells him to trust his handlers. They are serving the greater good today. The three continue their way into the facility, killing all of the guards that come out until the very last one falls. And Dimitri says that he believes that they are clear now, other than the men inside the missile silo. Lucia tells him yes. Well, he can sanction them too. She already has Von Doom's launch codes. A short while later, over in Nick's spy carrier, Nick Fury shouts that this is unbelievable. He programmed nuclear launch codes into a damned Doombot. Bucky tells him, "I know. Believe me, I know. But Doom is helping us now." Doom looks up after soldering something together, stating, "The boy has a point, Colonel Fury. Or is it ex-Colonel now? Von Doom has stopped trying to keep track of your titles." Natasha asks if they can just concentrate on the task at hand instead of squabbling. Can he repurpose the teleport rigs or not? Doom puts more parts together, telling her, "Of course. Reed Richards' work is always ready to be improved upon." Nick then asks if Kragoff knows about this secret missile silo. And Doom tells him of course not. The missiles are aimed at him. Doom steps back from the rig and says, "Now then, if you're ready to fix this little problem of ours, the device is complete. Although it will only endure one long-range jump." Bucky says, "All right then, it's time for us to move out." As Bucky begins to start the rig up, Natasha asks if he's certain that it will work. The blue light fills the room and Doom tells her, "Do not insult me." As Doom finishes speaking, the light fades and the two find themselves in Doom's secret missile silo. Just as they get their footing from the jump, Bucky says that he can feel the ground shaking, and Doom tells him, "Good. It means that they know that we're here." And seconds later, several of Red Ghost's gorillas open fire on them. As Bucky turns a corner, he sees Red Ghost holding a gun and he quickly fires at him. Red Ghost, having the ability to go intangible, fades through them, allowing the shots to miss him, but also forces him to drop his own gun. Bucky then continues to run full force through him so that he can get what he is really going for: the missile silo. As he gets in, Dimitri jumps down trying to stab him, forcing Bucky to the ground. Dimitri tries to overpower Bucky, but he notices Bucky's metal arm and he says, "No." The two exchange blows, but Bucky deflects the attacks, telling him, "You have to listen! This isn't your cause anymore! The war is over, Dimitri!" As Bucky is holding Dimitri down, Dimitri flips Bucky over, telling him, "No, all of you have lied! I don't want to be in your new world." But back out of the first part of the facility, Natasha does what she can to hold the gorillas back, allowing Doom to take on Lucia. Doom releases a blast, stunning Lucia, stating that she is a willful child and she is nothing compared to Doom. As she tries to fight back the blast, Doom holds her by her head, ripping out her cybernetic eye. With her powers flaring out uncontrollably, she ends up shocking all of the remaining gorillas. Doom stands over her body, telling her, that this is what she is. Used parts. Natasha yells, "My God," and Doom asks, "Do you want to sit there and cry over an insane woman or help your Winter Soldier?" Back with Bucky, Dimitri manages to grab a gun and begins to fire at him, forcing him to take cover behind a set of boxes. Dimitri shouts that he knows what his mission is, and through Dimitri's gunfire, Bucky leans up from a box, throwing a knife that hits Dimitri right in the chest. As Bucky steps out, he looks at the knife and realizes something. Dimitri didn't even try to dodge it. He didn't want to be under anyone's control. And shortly after that, Natasha and Doom run in with Doom asking if it's over. "The missiles, we haven't even..." But Bucky stops him and tells him that it's over. Now shut down the damn metal trap. Natasha asks, "Wasn't Red Ghost here?" And Bucky then realizes that he forgot to capture him. Once everything is said and done, Nick Fury moves in to secure the area, and Nick agrees that he would not expose Doom's secret nuclear bunker as long as he dismantles it. Doom agreed, seeing as how he knew of Bucky's existence. Doom may be many things, most of which are bad, but he is a man of his word. As the choppers begin to leave, Sitwell says the launch codes were never set. It looks like Dimitri defied orders. Any ideas why? Bucky thinks to himself that he has ideas, but he isn't going to bother answering this. And even after heading back, Bucky stares out the window thinking that Dimitri was just a kid that he trained to be a soldier, a patriot. And now, he will stay with him. As Natasha comes in, she says that she has some news that might not be exactly cheery. Bucky asks if she got anything out of Lucia. And Natasha tells him that she finally is strong enough to answer them, but she isn't talking. But that isn't the news that she wanted to tell him. Sitwell happened to have one piece of intel that he wanted to give him. So, several days later, in the Bahamas, Colonel Andrei Rostov, codenamed the Red Barbarian, looks at his cocktail thinking to himself that this is it. He got away after decades of service. He made enough money from the codes to live a very comfortable life, enough to purchase his escape. But as he laughs and takes a drink, there's a quiet blam, and the bullet shoots into his back and out his chest. In the bushes, Bucky is watching, making sure that he doesn't get up. However, in an unnamed holding facility, Sitwell sits in Lucia's cell, telling her that if she ever wants to see the light of day, she will answer one question. When she bought the activation codes from the Red Barbarian, she bought them for 3 sleepers. What happened to the third? Where is he? Was he on a mission that they didn't uncover? She begins to laugh, stating that he will have to forgive her. In all the excitement, she had forgotten the truth is, she has no idea about the third sleeper. When she went to his stasis tube, he was empty long before she got there. She's afraid that that one could be anywhere. Late night in a San Francisco parking garage, Bucky moves into position, radioing back that he's ready to enter, and that they have some AIM scavengers on site. Sitwell asks, how the hell did they find this place? And Bucky tells him that he can ask them once they're taken into custody. Sitwell says, believe him, he will. So try and keep things non-lethal, Barnes. As Bucky runs in, taking down the 2 agents, he tells him, sure, I'll do my best with that. Bucky then breaks into the elevator shaft, making his way down to the lower levels, silently taking out more AIM agents along the way. But soon after taking down the last agent, Bucky sees that the facility is partially destroyed, and he radios back asking, has there been any seismic activity here in the past few years? However, before Sitwell can even give him the report, Bucky heads into the lab containing what would be the third sleeper agent, but finds the stasis tube already broken. Bucky calls in, telling him that this is their worst case scenario. It looks like sleeper agent number 3 has woken up a long time ago. By the looks of it, it wasn't a gentle wake up. It was 12 years ago, in that very lab, Neo Novico awoken from his sleep to the sounds of what he thought were bombs going off around him. The earthquake had shaken the control devices, keeping him under, and with only instinct and fear, he broke free from his stasis tube. As rock and debris began to fall from the ceiling, Leo did the only thing he knew how to do: live. He ran through the crumbling facility, climbing through the vents until he reached the outside world, and on the street, an officer saw Leo and yelled to him that he needs to hurry and get away from the area. He then stops, asking, why is he naked? Just like before, his instincts kicked in, and he killed the officer, telling him that he's not sure himself. With no memories of anything before the earthquake or even who he was, Leo quietly left the scene, never to be heard from again. Back in the current day, Bucky and Natasha begin to go over the information that they have on Leo in Sitwell's ops room. Bucky says that getting awoken from stasis like that, there's no telling what would have gone through his mind. Natasha asks, doesn't he have protocols for this sort of thing? Chemical injections, mental stimulation. And Bucky tells her, Yes, there is. But Leo skipped all of that. He was shocked back to life by an earthquake. That's the part that worries me the most, and it's why nobody has heard from him after he was activated. But where has he been for the last 12 years, Natasha? During those 12 years, Leo drifted around. This was America and nothing made any sense to him. None of the movie stars had the right names, and one of them wasn't the president. So with nothing else, Leo just used his skills to survive, however he needed to. And that was the first year. Soon after that, Leo would start to see masked heroes in the news. Men of iron, men wearing the flag, gods with hammers, and he didn't know why, but he was drawn to them. Later, Leo would travel east to New York, doing the same thing that he had always been doing. Even though he drifted, there was one thing that was a constant. Every day he would read the classified ads in the newspaper. He didn't know why, maybe it was out of compulsion, but after a few months after all of those wasted years, he saw the ad that he didn't even know that he was looking for, and he woke up again. Now, in the current day, back at the spy carrier, Natasha asks, isn't there a backup protocol? And Bucky says that he doesn't think so. Natasha steps out of the shower, telling him okay. But what would he have done if he suddenly went missing after an op? How would the Winter Soldier have been found if he went MIA? Bucky tells her that that's it. They have to check the newspapers. All of them. So just 3 months prior, Boris Kolchak watched the news about Bucky, asking, can you believe it? All those years, and the Winter Soldier was an American committing crimes against his own people. Leo poured himself a drink, telling him that he supposes that makes sense. He then hands the drink to Boris, asking, so, are you supposed to be my controller? Is that why you knew to place ads in the classifieds? Boris tells him of course. He went to go wake him, but he was already gone. He had been running ads in the cities all over the country ever since this trail of Bucky. Leo then asks if he expects him to follow orders, and Boris takes a sip of his drink, telling him, you are sworn to. Leo then asks, do you think that in all of this time, I'm the same man who took that oath? Boris tells him that men don't change, especially men like, but before he could finish, Leo shoots Boris in the back of the head. Yes, men do change. The war may be over, but my war isn't. After that, Leo followed the news of his old mentor, the Winter Soldier. All this time, they could have been saved. So during the times of Bucky's arrest, Leo learnt that Bucky was indeed escaping the Russian gulag and fighting one last battle for his country, a battle that he would ultimately die from. Within weeks of Bucky's death, he was branded a traitor and his country would come together to mourn him. Leo himself even went there to listen to Steve Rogers' eulogy. But something inside of Leo knew that all of this was a lie, that Barnes was alive, that he had escaped his punishment yet again. And while discussions of Bucky's true nature are still being debated across the states, Leo watched an interview with Fred Davis, Bucky's stand-in. None of the media's examination of Bucky's life helped with the situation, until all of a sudden, it did. Back in the ops room, details of Boris's death trickle in, and Sitwell says that it seems that their man, Leo, wasn't very interested in having a handler. Bucky says that this is not normal behavior for a sleeper. Being woken up from stasis the way that he was, they need to hurry and find him. Natasha stepped away from the computer, stating that she thinks that they just did, and she's so sorry to have to be the one to tell him this. So a short while later, in the New York apartment of Fred Davis, Bucky looks down at the man that was his friend, a decorated American hero. Sitwell tells him that he's sorry, but clearly they have bigger problems. Bucky reads the words, "Only one Bucky left," written in Fred Davis's blood, as he says, "Yes, clearly we do." Across the street, Leo pulls down his binoculars, quietly stating, "Gotcha." 2 months pass, and late night at the government facility in New Mexico, a scientist documents his latest find on his current project. As he turns off the recorder, he calls out to another scientist, asking if they have any more coffee that has been made yet. With no answer, the scientist gets up, looking outside of the lab, and finds that all of the security guards have been killed. He stumbles back, "Oh God," and Leo tells him, "You wouldn't believe how difficult it was to find you. You should pray to that God that this is worth my effort." The next day at the research facility, Sitwell goes over the reports, stating that there are 4 soldiers dead, 7 injured, and 2 in critical condition. Bucky says that it looks like that he just took down anyone that got in his way. Is there anything missing from the labs? Sitwell flips over a piece of paper, holding it out, stating that not something, but someone, a neuroscientist by the name of Fleischmann. Natasha takes the paper, looking at the picture, asking if this is Fleischmann, because that cannot be his real name. His real name is Professor Rodchenko, and he worked at the Red Room. From the early 1950s to the fall of the Soviet Union, the Red Room was a training program in Moscow. One of Department X's specialties was brainwashing, and Rodchenko was one of Red Room's main programmers in the mid-1970s. Back at the ops room, Sitwell says that it looks like Rodchenko defected to the US in the 80s and has been working in their labs ever since. Bucky then asks, how did Leo get Rodchenko out of the facility? None of the vehicles are missing. Sitwell tells him that they got a bit lucky on that one. A motorhome was reported missing an hour before the attack. Makes sense if they assume that Leo got a lackey by now. He can be on the move while getting out Rodchenko. Bucky tells him, please tell him that they have tracking on the vehicle, and Sitwell smiles. Oh, no, we have tracking on that vehicle. 2 hours later, along the Colorado highway, Bucky and Natasha weave in and out of traffic to catch up with Leo's motorhome. And just as Bucky gets close, Natasha jumps out of the vehicle. Bucky radios back asking if they have thermal imaging yet, and Sitwell tells him affirmative. Looks like 5 passengers total, 2 in the back, 1 driving, 2 looking right at him. Suddenly the windows burst open as 2 men open fire on Bucky, but then they're suddenly stopped as Natasha kicks in the window from the other side. He jumps off the bikes, telling Sitwell to keep it on auto and don't let it crash. As Bucky jumps through the window, Sitwell tells him, wait, there's something off. 2 in the back. They're giving off too much heat. Leo steps into the hallway and starts to fire at Bucky and Natasha, forcing them to stay down. One of the other men begins to get back up as Bucky tells him no, and the man gets hit by Leo's spray. But Leo then turns his fire towards the front of the motorhome, hitting the driver too. He begins to laugh. Ha! That was brief, but fun. Thanks for coming. And then he jumps out down onto a passing Humvee. Bucky runs to the front, telling Natasha to get the bike and follow Leo. But then he hears Natasha yell, oh hell! The 2 in the back, they were passengers. It's a bomb, and one too complicated to defuse. Bucky asks how much time they have, and Natasha tells him 1.5 minutes, so Bucky yells, all right, go! Without hesitation, Natasha jumps out the window onto the bike, taking off after Leo. Bucky radios back to Sitwell asking where is an exit. Sitwell tells him that there's going to be an overhang on his left, a mile up the road. So Bucky shouts, a mile? And he stomps on the gas. Mentally, he's counting down with the timer while racing down the highway until he sees an exit sign. As the motorhome crashes through the metal barrier, Bucky jumps out from the ledge, watching as the motorhome safely explodes away from everyone. Sitwell begins to call out over the radio as Bucky tells him that he's alive. How's Natasha doing? Sitwell tells him that they have an inbound chopper coming for him. But as for Widow, she ran into a dead zone. They lost her signal. Bucky pauses. What do you mean, a dead zone? Over with Natasha, she sneaks up on a satellite site that's blocking her signals and begins to scan the area for Leo. Bucky begins to realize that the motorhome wasn't the trap. It was just a way to separate him from Black Widow. And Leo uses a stun gun to take her out, as Bucky says that Natasha was his target all along. 3 hours later at the satellite site, S.H.I.E.L.D. agents scan the area and say that they have located where Natasha was taken. Satellite photos show a helicopter leaving the area approximately 2 hours and 50 minutes ago. What's more, they found something else. As the S.H.I.E.L.D. agents point towards a tree, Bucky sees a paper stamped into it with the words, Bucky, what's yours is mine, written in blood. The agent says that they're waiting for DNA to confirm, but it appears to be Romanov's blood type. Sitwell says that they will find her, and Bucky tells him, yeah, you better. Meanwhile, over at an undisclosed location, Leo is pointing a gun at Rodchenko, telling him that he hopes he understands the kind of effort that he has gone through to get them all here. Rodchenko holds up his hands, telling him please, he has a family, and Leo tells him that he knows. It would be a shame if something terrible happened to them in that lovely house in Denver. Rodchenko then asks what does he want, and Leo laughs, telling him that he was starting to think that he was never going to ask. Please, this way. As Rodchenko follows Leo into the next room, he sees Natasha hooked up to a machine. And Leo says that he knows that it's not the exact settings of the old immersion programming chamber, but he had to improvise on a bit of the parts. And you wouldn't believe the hassle he had to go through to get the design specs. Must have killed 10 people just for that. Rodchenko stares at Natasha, stating that this can't be, and Leo tells him, yes, it is the Black Widow. It's like a classic reunion here, brainwasher and brainwashee. Natasha begins to mumble something and Leo says, oops, looks like she's coming around, better give her a dose. Rodchenko runs to the computer, telling him to just let him do it. As Natasha falls back to sleep, Rodchenko says that he can do this. But what does he want her programmed for? Leo smiles. I want her to be like she used to be bad. So the next day, Bucky begins his search for leads, taking down anyone in his way that might have some information. He's killed so many people, but none of them are innocent by any means. But he just keeps hurting them, even after he knows that they have nothing for him. He feels angry, helpless, just what Leo wanted him to feel. A few days later on the roof of the Hotel Empire, Leo waits, stating that it is 8:45 and that they should be here any second. He looks down the scope, seeing a woman with red hair, and he watches. She whistles to herself as she walks down the street. And as a passing car approaches, Leo shoots out the car's tires. The car swerves out of control, hitting the woman. And Leo smiles as he pulls back his rifle. Back with Bucky, he sits down at a bar with Sitwell, and Sitwell asks how is he holding up. Bucky says that he's fine, but Sitwell tells him, please, be real. You're a wreck, Bucky. Bucky asks, what? Are we friends all of a sudden, Sitwell? And Sitwell tells him, yeah, they are. Sitwell goes on telling him, look, I've worked with Natasha for nearly 10 years. I'm blaming myself just as much over this. Bucky looks away and he sighs and he asks, what the hell are we going to do? Sitwell laughs. I'm a genius, remember? There's a reason why I brought you here, and that reason is walking through that front door right now. 3 men walk in, and Sitwell says that they are 3 ex-Spetsnaz that have been working with Leo. They need to take things nice, and without saying a word, Bucky gets up from the table, grabbing one of the men, and another one of the men shouts in Russian, asking, what the hell? Bucky slams the head of the man that he grabbed onto the table just as another tackles into him, and the first gets back up. But before they can help their friend, Sitwell grabs him from behind. He starts to choke him, telling him, you're just gonna sit this one out. The man who grabbed Bucky pins him down, pulling out a knife, telling Bucky that he's about to be a dead American. And as the knife bounces off of Bucky's metal arm, he tells him, not so much, Russian, and he punches him off. Sitwell grabs a hold of his badge, telling everyone that this is official government business, and they would want to stay out of this. One man that Bucky punches asks, what does he want? Bucky tells him in Russian that he wants to know what Comrade Novikov has been up to. The next morning, the ballet director stands in the theater shouting, what is he supposed to do now? Their lead has 3 broken ribs and a fractured pelvis. The director's aide says that she knows, and that's why they lined up a replacement. The director yells that they have a private dress rehearsal in 2 days. Who will be able to perform in that little time? The aide motions to the stage, and the director looks and watches. Oh my God. As the woman on the stage performs, the aide smiles, stating that she found someone extraordinary. The director continues to stare and asks what is her name. The woman on the stage turns, and Natasha looks at them, and the aide says, Natalia. A few days later, Natasha begins to put on her lipstick, and another aide knocks on her door telling her 20 minutes to curtain. Don't want to keep them waiting, right? Natasha finishes, stating no, they do not. And a few moments later, backstage, the director asks if everyone is seated. This private show for the First Lady and her friends cannot go wrong. As the show begins, Natasha performs just as the director had hoped for. But as his aide looks around, she asks, wasn't the Secret Service just here? The director starts to ask what, and the aide says that she'll be right back. And then the aide goes back into the dressing rooms, but as she looks down the stairway, she sees the Secret Service agent dead. She turns to run back, bumping into Bucky and Sitwell, who shouts out, oh God, please don't! Sitwell pulls out his badge, telling everyone to take it easy, they're from S.H.I.E.L.D. They're going to need her to exit the building right now, quietly. The aide says that there's someone down the stairway, he might be hurt or... And Bucky stops her, telling her, it's okay, you need to get to safety. Sitwell radios out to the other Secret Service agents that they need to start evacuating people and not to alarm them. One of the agents responds, telling him Roger, but as they start to direct everyone out, Natasha stops the performance. Bucky knew that no matter what, Natasha would try to salvage the mission, and right on cue, she begins to charge right at the First Lady. But before she can make it that far, Bucky tackles her to the ground, telling her to just stop and listen for a moment. Natasha stares into Bucky's eyes and then kicks him, screaming, traitor! She punches and kicks into Bucky, and Bucky quickly realizes that when Natasha and he sparred, she held back a lot. Just as Bucky blocks one of her punches, Leo begins to shoot from up in the rafters. He fires without a concern for who he hits, but he shouldn't have given away his position. Bucky jumps out of the way of the bullets, grabbing onto a rope, shooting out the weight connected to it. The weight begins to drop, and Bucky is flowing into the air with Natasha beginning to chase after him. Sitwell yells to Natasha to wait, but as he fires his stun gun, Natasha dodges, kicking him in the face. Back in the rafters, Leo yells that he's a real spoil sport, and as Bucky begins to punch Leo in the face, he tells him that he doesn't even know. While Bucky and Leo fight, Sitwell tries to hold his own against Natasha, but as he goes to throw her to the ground, she grabs his gun. Bucky gives Leo a hard crack to the face with his metal arm, and as Leo gets back up, he asks Bucky, what are you going to choose? Bucky looks down and sees Natasha pointing a gun at Sitwell, and Leo asks, are you going to take me in or save Natasha from shooting him? Bucky grits his teeth. He jumps over the ledge, knocking Natasha to the ground, and as she rolls, she points the gun at the two of them with Bucky yelling, I know you're still in there! I know it! she keeps the gun trained on them, and Bucky takes off his mask, telling her, "Look, I know what you're going through. They did it to me, remember? James, remember?" Natasha's eyes begin to water. She drops the gun as she asks, what did she do? Bucky runs over to her, and Sitwell picks himself up, looking around, stating that it would seem that they have lost Leo. Natasha says that she has an idea of where he might be going. A few moments later, Natasha and Sitwell head to the SHIELD helicarrier, while Bucky goes out himself looking for Rodchenko. It doesn't take long for Bucky to find him, and as the armed guard holds his gun to Rodchenko's head, Bucky fires two, hitting the guard in the shoulder, then the chest. Bucky begins to untie Rodchenko, asking where Leo went, and Rodchenko tells him he doesn't know. Leo and Black Widow left hours ago and never came back. So as the two walk back out of the safe house, Bucky reports back that he found Rodchenko, but it looks like Leo escaped. See if Natasha remembers any other locations but Rodchenko stops them, stating, "Wait, you have Black Widow?" Bucky tells him, "Yeah, we saved her. Why?" Rodchenko says, "No, you have to stop them. That was a part of Leo's plan." Bucky radios back calling for Sitwell, but he gets no answer, and aboard the SHIELD helicarrier, many of its agents lay in pools of their own blood. High above the streets of New York, the helicarrier flies just hours after it happened. And Medical Bay 2 Maria Hill says that it's just down there. Will they be able to keep it together? Bucky tells her to just show him what he came for. So the two of them walk in, and Maria says that this is where it all went down. They're still piecing together what exactly happened, but Agent Romanov was being examined by a SHIELD physician. Sitwell was asking her questions about her time with Leo Novikov and what she was doing for the past few days, but Natasha didn't seem to remember anything about her time being brainwashed. According to the doctor, everything was going fine, and he was about to order a brain CT to check what had been done to her, but that's when Fury walked in. Doctor said it was like a switch had been turned on. Natasha broke the neck of the agent nearby, took his gun, and then opened fire. Bucky looks around, yelling, "We saved her! We undid the mental conditioning!" But Maria says that apparently that's just what Novikov wanted them to think. However, he has bigger plans. Still injured, Fury put up one hell of a fight, but his right arm was disabled, and they both knew what Natasha was capable of. It wasn't a matter of whether she'd get the upper hand, it was how long it would take her. As she lined up the kill shot on Nick Fury, Agent Sitwell jumped in the way, sacrificing himself to give Fury the time to wound Romanov and hit the red alert. At that point, injured, Natasha fled Hangar Bay 7 and escaped using one of the flying motorcycles. There was a tracking device on that bike, but she abandoned it once she hit the ground. As Bucky looks down at Jasper, he sighs, stating Natasha is going to hate herself for this. Sitwell was one of the few people that she really liked. Maria says that she's sorry, she liked him too, but Bucky turns to her. "I want to see the Red Room scientist. No!" As Bucky begins to question Professor Rodchenko, the Soviet scientist who originally defected after the Red Room affair that created Black Widow, he says that he's sorry. Novikov made him build a second layer into Black Widow's programming. The first was what they saw. She was like her old self, the ballerina. She even thought that she was still married to the Red Guardian. But once she snapped out of that, the deeper layer would begin to take her over slowly. Bucky asks what was the other layer for, what was the intention, and Rodchenko says that that is the layer about him. Most of her memories about him, the parts about the relationship, have been erased. Bucky lashes out, grabbing the scientist by the neck, shouting, "You cut me out of her memories?" And Rodchenko begs, stating that Novikov threatened his family. "Please, don't do this." Bucky lets go, asking, "What else did you program into her?" Rodchenko pants. "She thinks she was a double agent all this time. Everything that she's done with S.H.I.E.L.D., with the Avengers, it was all a mission, and that she has been reactivated to join Leo Novikov and plan a new attack behind enemy lines." Later, with this realization, Bucky stares into the pouring rain as time passes. A voice asks him if he plans on staying there all night and brooding, or if he's ready to get to work. Bucky looks back at Captain America. "I wondered how long until they would call you in. Guess you know what's going on now?" Cap tells him, "Nick Fury was shot. I was one of the first people they called. I'm sorry about Natasha and Jasper." Bucky asks if this is how he felt after losing him, and Cap tells him, "Yeah, that helpless feeling. Would much rather take a gut punch from the Hulk than have to go through that again. However, you aren't alone in this. Don't forget that, Bucky." As Cap opens the doors to the next room, Hawkeye stands there asking, "Is that really you? Aren't you supposed to be dead?" And Bucky says, "I'm sorry that you had to find out this way." Wolverine walks up, shaking Bucky's hand. "I knew that coffin smelled like an LMD." Bucky says that he appreciates him coming in, but Wolverine says, "I'm not here for you. I'm here for Natasha." As Maria begins the mission briefing with Captain America, Hawkeye, Wolverine, and Bucky all there, elsewhere, Marvin Martin sits in his weapons room as a group of men enter. Marvin says, "We don't have a problem here, do we?" And one of the men says, "Yeah, we do." Another chimes in, "It's not like we're unhappy with your product, but your job went wrong, and we need to erase our tracks, if you know what I mean." Marvin grabs his gun, but the second man smacks him to the ground. "It's nothing personal. It's just the world we live in." Suddenly, all of the men are shot from behind, with Marvin asking who's there. Leo walks in stating, "Someone who is prepared to offer you a lot of money for your services, assuming you are tired of working freelance." Back at the helicarrier, Bucky takes time to hit the sandbag, thinking of his time with Natasha. He hits harder, and soon after he begins to slow down. Hawkeye walks in stating that they're on duty. Natasha was spotted in Manhattan. Time to suit up. Are you ready? Bucky begins to take off the wrappings on his fist. Do you even have to ask? So a short while later, Hawkeye plays the video of Natasha's appearance as a group of men begin to attack. It didn't take long after Natasha used an RPG to take them all out. Then there was something about Natasha's expression. It was strange. Hawkeye says that they were lucky enough to spawn her, but Bucky tells him that there's no luck involved in this. See her face? She's smiling at the camera. We aren't seeing anything that Novikov didn't want us to see. As the two step out of the SHIELD mobile operations truck, Bucky asks what do they have on the VIX. Maria says that they just got a DNA hit from one of the drivers, part of a crew that attempted to break into the Baxter building 2 nights ago. They weren't successful and they barely managed to escape. The rest of the crew was found in a nearby building, and as the three walk in, Hawkeye says that he knows who this place belonged to. Some guy who used to work for the Tinkerer. Marvin tells him correct. Marvin Martin tried to call himself Marvelous Marv, but it never stuck. Bucky says, so a weaponsmith is missing, and Leo and Natasha's car chase led us here. Looks like Leo got himself his own private weapons dealer. Later, back up in the sky, Bucky begins to think back to his training with the Red Room and says that he might have an idea to pick up a lead. Head towards Lexington. As Hawkeye pilots the plane, he asks what's over there, and Bucky tells him it's a possible dead drop location. So a short while later, as they touch down in Gramercy Park, Hawkeye asks what is he expecting to find there. Bucky tells him that he isn't sure, but Leo left behind a code on the scene, something back from the Red Room days that no one noticed. Under a statue, Bucky finds a box, and as he opens it, he begins to smile. Hawkeye asks, what is it? Bucky tells him that there's a piece of paper in this drop, an address for a munitions cache. And as for why he's smiling, when he scanned for fingerprints, the last person to open this up was Natasha. Hawkeye asks, they left us an address to find? Yeah, Leo's a big fan of leaving us breadcrumbs. The two take off and they make their way to the location, with Hawkeye stating that he's going to guess that the things that they are looking for are not things that they want falling into the wrong hands. And by that he means a bunch of crazy AIM mad scientist guys who happen to already be here. Bucky looks out the window. Did Leo give AIM the location as well? What is he planning? At that moment, Hawkeye jumps out, firing arrows down at the scientist, leaving Bucky to deal with the incoming bullets. But before Hawkeye could even realize it, Bucky leaps out of the jet, sending it crashing down to the ground below, clearing everyone out. The two quickly begin to knock everyone out with non-lethal attacks until there's no one left, and Hawkeye says that those airships aren't cheap, you know. Afterwards, Bucky and Hawkeye sneak into the bunker quietly, taking out any more scientists until they finally reach the main storage, only to find that it's already been cleared out. The only thing that they find there is an old hard drive, and as they take it, Leo appears on one of the screens telling them, it would seem that the Winter Soldier hasn't lost his touch after all these years. I went ahead and removed all the pretty things earlier and left you that hard drive. It's got a mission on it. You're going to have Professor Rodchenko and plant it into your head. If you don't, then you will never see Black Widow again. Because we're going to need you to get back into the game, and you can't be a real Winter Soldier unless you're programmed to kill. Later back at the helicarrier, Maria asks if he's out of his mind, and Bucky says that it's the only option that they have. So Maria tells him that their only option is to implant an assassination mission in your head. We can't even look at the hard drive to see who you're supposed to kill, Bucky. Hawkeye chimes in. Maria's right. Even if we do this, how do we know that Novikov would keep his word? Bucky tells them, we don't. We're playing by Leo's rules now, whether we want to admit it or not. If Novikov wants me to be the old Winter Soldier, then I'll do it. I just hope that you can stop me. Bucky reaches down into Hawkeye's quiver, pulling out an explosive arrow and then throwing it, using the blast to knock everyone out. Minutes later, he heads down to see Rodchenko with the implant that contains Leo's mission, and he steals one of the hover cars and he leaves. However, Bucky was smart. When Cap and the others caught wind of what was happening, they rushed to see Rodchenko, only to find him removing the helmet that was used to brainwash Bucky, forgetting what Bucky told him. Cap radios to Wolverine telling him that he's going to need to get to the extraction, but as Wolverine lays broken at Bucky's feet, he says that that's going to be a problem. A few moments later, Bucky gets ready to deliver his final blow to Wolverine, but Bucky quickly deflects an oncoming arrow. Hawkeye sighs. I forgot how good Bucky was when he was bad. As Bucky escapes, Hawkeye looks down at Wolverine. Are you alive yet? And Wolverine looks back. I'm getting there, bub. Once Wolverine heals back up, he and Hawkeye follow Bucky's trail, but while they're having trouble pinpointing where Bucky's going, Cap radios in that they've got an update. S.H.I.E.L.D. managed to get through into the hard drive, and they pulled out data about the mission that Bucky is on. They know who he's targeting. Hawkeye asks who is it, and Cap says it's someone that they should have thought about already. Matt Murdock. They've been looking for political targets, but Novikov's made it clear more than once that this is personal. Elsewhere, in the home of Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. Daredevil hears someone sneaking in as he trains, and he quickly masks up. Who the hell is there? Bucky rushes in shooting, but Daredevil quickly dodges. I'm in no mood for games, Bucky tells him. Good. As one of Daredevil's thrown batons comes back, Bucky shoots it before Daredevil could catch it and then pauses. He thinks for a moment. Wait, you're Natasha's man. Bucky, you're supposed to be dead. And Bucky tells him, yeah, I am, and so are you. And he pulls the trigger on Daredevil. Just outside of the home, Hawkeye and Wolverine fly up in a flying car, when suddenly both Bucky and Daredevil come bursting out of the windows. Daredevil fires a grappling hook to catch himself, leaving Bucky to fall. However, Bucky lands right on the hood of the flying car. Wolverine yells that the weight is going to cause them to crash, and Hawkeye says, no, Bucky wouldn't do that. And as Bucky looks up, he smiles, telling them, nice ride! And he shoots out the car's controls. As the car begins to plummet, Bucky runs off of it, jumping into a nearby building, telling them, thanks for the lift! As the car slams into the ground, bouncing off the street, a few moments go by, and Wolverine claws his way out, telling him, I am seriously going to hurt that kid. Up at the top, though, Bucky reloads his gun, asking Daredevil if he's ready for round 2, or is he going to keep running? When Bucky sees him, he opens fire, and Daredevil jumps, dodging out of the way, and then he leaps into attack. As Daredevil gets closer, Bucky grabs him by the leg, pulling him down. Daredevil cracks Bucky in the head, and as Bucky jumps back, Daredevil manages to knock him away, sending him right between Hawkeye and Wolverine. Hawkeye pulls out his flash arrow, and as it gets close, he snatches it before it goes off, throwing it into Wolverine's face. Everyone continues to fight back and forth, and between the explosions and the gunfire, Cap jumps out of the helicopter, bashing Bucky in the back of the head. As Hawkeye and Wolverine pick Bucky up, Daredevil asks if it's over. Cap tells him, I'm sorry you got caught in the crossfire, Daredevil. Was that really Bucky Barnes? He's supposed to be dead. And Cap tells him, I can't speak on that. Also, Matt Murdock isn't supposed to be Daredevil. A few hours later, as the reprogramming helmet is removed from Bucky, he holds his head in his hands. Please, tell me I didn't kill anyone. Cap says that it wasn't from the lack of trying. What the hell were you thinking, Bucky? Bucky tells him he doesn't know, he just was desperate. Novikov has taken everything, and he doesn't know what else to do or how to save Natasha. Once Bucky gets out, Wolverine says that he doesn't want to hear it, and Bucky tries to explain that they were right. But don't sit there and state that he wouldn't have done the same thing for the woman that he loved. Wolverine turns back, punching Bucky to the ground. I don't want to hear it. You just wasted our time. Natasha's out there somewhere with the psycho, and instead we had to stay back dealing with a puppet. As the two argue, Cap walks up asking if they're done here or are they going to need another minute, because as it stands, we still have an Avenger missing. They are all so busy yelling that no one noticed that Leo left them another clue. Daredevil was important to Natasha. He wanted to kill someone that she loves. So what does that tell them? Bucky says that he's planning to give her back. And Hawkeye says, but only that it'll be a worse torture for both of them. Wolverine says that means they've still got a chance, and that's all he needs. Meanwhile, at the Arlington National Cemetery, Leo and Natasha get out of a large truck, with Natasha asking why are they here, of all places. Leo says because this will be the place where they gain 2 victories with 1 action. Across the river, the houses of their government will quake and fall, and over here we'll have a more symbolic victory. As the rain continues to pour down, lightning strikes as the two pass by a statue of Captain America and Bucky. But with not much else to go on, Bucky and the others follow up on a lead with Marvin, who is trying to fly out of the city. His flight is called and he sighs, stating that it's about time, but Cap tells him, Actually, I'm afraid you're not going anywhere. Outside, Wolverine slams Marvin into a wall as he yells that he doesn't know the location. He just doesn't want to be around when all of this goes off. He doesn't know where Leo and Natasha went. All he knew is that they had him build a bomb, how big the blast radius was going to be. And with that information, Maria mapped out 3 possible locations where Leo could have planted it, and everyone sets out. Bucky was sent to the least likely location because, well, he's been a bit of a loose cannon. As Bucky arrives there, he sees some guards dead by the cemetery gates and he begins to run in. He reports back with his findings and Cap tells him to wait and let them catch up, but Bucky says that he's sorry. I can't do that, Cap. I have to save Natasha. Up ahead, Leo is setting the bomb, telling them that they have just enough time to get to the airstrip and get clear of the blast. But as Natasha sits on a tombstone, she tells Leo to hold on. There's something out there. She waits for a moment and then asks if he's going to hide all night. Or are they going to do this? Bucky spins out from cover, shooting, asking what does she think. But Natasha is too fast. Not that he wanted to hit her anyway, he just needed her out of his way. However, through his shots, Natasha gracefully flips, making her way over, and Bucky manages to get a clean hit into her chin. She rolls around with a counterpunch, but Bucky tells himself that of course she would. She's just setting him up for her master. Good. Leo charges in, but as he swings, he stabs into Bucky's leg, and as Bucky kicks him in the face, he launches him across the path. Bucky pulls the knife from his leg and spins back, throwing it to keep Natasha away, and then goes back to deal with Novikov directly. Bucky knocks Leo to the ground, getting ready to shoot him, because he deserves to die. But why isn't Bucky pulling the trigger? A few moments pass, and the area is lit up by helicopters, and with his focus on Leo, Bucky doesn't see Natasha kicking him in the head, and she goes to help Leo. She tells him that they have to go, but Leo grabs her, holding a gun to her, telling her, I have a better plan. Bucky calls out to him, and Leo asks, isn't this how you taught us? This is between us, Leo. Natasha has nothing to do with it. Let her go, and we can walk out of here. Why would they do that? All of your friends are here. Bucky keeps his gun pointed, and he tells Hawkeye to do it. Suddenly, an arrow is shot into Natasha's leg. It startles both her and Leo enough to have Leo let go and gives Bucky the chance to get a few clean shots in. He runs in to help her up, but she shouts for him to stay away. Bucky tells Natasha, it's me, Bucky, James, don't you remember? And she looks at him, dead in the eyes. Who the hell is Bucky? It was at that moment that Bucky hoped that he had killed Leo, but no. He even laughed as the SHIELD doctor saved his life. And once they got back into the helicarrier, everyone learned what Leo was laughing about. The doctors worked for days to rebuild the synaptic bridge in Natasha's mind, and at first it seemed like a success. She remembers being an Avenger, and she remembers working for SHIELD. She remembers everything except Bucky. That's the only strand of her memory that has been permanently severed. And that's how Bucky feels. Cap says that they can't give up yet, but Bucky tells him no. Just stop. She's had her head messed with enough for 10 lifetimes already. He won't let it happen again on his account. All he's ever brought her was trouble. Nearly got her killed in the Red Room when they first met. She is better off without him. And just like that, Leo's final move is made. Even though Leo will spend the rest of his life in solitary confinement on the raft, he still wins. Bucky tries to imagine his life without Natasha, and all he sees is pain and heartbreak. But at least he'll be the only one feeling it. He'll take solace in that thought and hold on to it as long as he can. But it won't be long enough. As Bucky sits at a bar, littered with bodies of men scattered about, he drinks, thinking to himself that he isn't quite sure what he was expecting here in Croatia. One afternoon in 1977, Colonel Rajko led his forces against the fascist Soviet occupation, killing 50 of his men, including 3 of his brothers. Never expected Rajko to take that well, but he needed to know. He was really hoping that it wouldn't end like this. And with that, he goes to pour himself another drink. And with the bottle empty, he grabs another from the bar as a man walks in, telling him that he needs to take care of himself. Nick Fury walks in, and Bucky flicks a glass towards him, and Fury goes on telling him to take it from him. Avon will discount his beauty cream just like that. Then what's a girl to do? Bucky tells him that he isn't coming in. That's the end of that, but Fury says that he ain't here to threaten him. He's going to give it to him straight, to warn him. Leo Novikov was nuts. Whatever the Soviets did to him went sideways. End of story. What he did is on him, no matter what happened between the two of them. This little crusade of running around confessing his sins, it's got the new SHIELD brass more than a little jumpy. He's supposed to be playing dead. Remember, dead men don't talk. Bucky slams his fist onto the bar and he walks out, looking out onto the waters, stating that Cap used to tell him, remember who you are. Leave it to Steve to think that that would fix things. Bring back his long-lost partner. Erase all the horrible things that he has done. The kid Steve remembers never existed. No one's ever been able to see that. No one but Natasha. He doesn't belong at S.H.I.E.L.D. without her, and she doesn't remember him after all of the events that just happened. So he can't risk losing what little is left of him to someone else's mission again. His past is out there, ticking like a time bomb. If he has any future, he needs to find it and face it before it finds him. Fury takes another swig of his bottle, wiping his mouth, and he states, "Good thing you brought your little black book." Name at the top of Fury's list was Joe Robards. In 1982, Robards was a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent burrowed deep undercover in Hydra. The sole tether to his old life was his handler, an agent named Gina Autry. But Agent Autry was more than that. She was the love of his life. She was his life. And that same year, Bucky was tasked with the recovery of a defecting Soviet scientist, Dr. Linus Tarasova. Agent Autry was his opposite number, tasked with Tarasova's extraction to the west. Gina Autry died in a snowy field in Latveria. She died defending Dr. Tarasova from Bucky. For over 30 years, Joe Robards never broke cover. He loyally served his mission, but according to Fury, that ended last night. 18 hours ago, Joe took this cash-flushed casino by force, killing the heads of 3 separate Hydra factions in the assault. In the fallout of it all, every wannabe within Hydra was scrambling to get Joe's head as a trophy. As the bullets started to whiz by, Joe activated a small bomb, tossing it back, stating, "Open wide and say ah." The explosion went off and Bucky jumped out the window, opening fire on the remaining Hydra agents. Once they have a moment, Bucky tells Joe that they need to go, but Joe pushed back, telling him hell no. The things that they made him do, he's putting every single one of them into the ground. But while the two of them argue about Joe giving up his life here to do what he said, one of the Hydra agents stands back up, riddled with bullets, yelling, "Hail! Hail the Dark Hydra!" The agent shuffles forward onto Bucky, and Joe takes Bucky's gun and begins to open fire. The agent turns back, heading towards Joe, but with his back turned, Bucky grabs a nearby sword, slicing through them. The limb flops to the ground, and then a green growth replaces it as the agent says, "Cut off the limb and 2 more!" Joe then asks Bucky if he can punch a hole through this thing. He's got an idea. While Bucky does just that, Joe slips one of his bombs into a bottle, tossing it to Bucky, whose arm is now sticking out of the agent. The bomb goes off, and as the agent screams, Bucky takes him and throws him out a window. As the two watch, the agent hits the ground with Bucky turning, telling him, "All right, time to go." But Joe reaches into his pocket, pulling out a pair of brass knuckles, swinging. Before Joe could land his punch, Bucky swings, hitting him, telling him, "After 30 years, you blew your cover tonight of all nights." Fury might not be calling the shots anymore, but you either know something you're not saying, or worse, there's something you don't know. Joe vomits all over the floor and then falls over. Bucky sighs, picking him up, and he leaves. Later, with the events of what happened with the original extraction and Agent Autry, Bucky was in the snow reporting back that it is done. His superior tells him that they need visual confirmation, Colonel Petrov's direct orders. Bucky asks, "You need proof?" "I'm living proof, but I'll get confirmation. Both Linus Tarasov and Autry have been neutralized." As the two sit in one of Natasha's safe houses, Bucky says that he found the tracking device that they missed. They may want Hydra busting down the door so that they can fulfill that death wish. But he'll bet lunch that the S.H.I.E.L.D. team surveilling them wants action more. Joe yells that he doesn't know who they think they are, but Nick Fury himself couldn't stop him from walking out that door. He'll scratch out the other eye. Bucky looks at Autry's files, thinking that once she was an enemy in the eyes of Russia, which made her a target for him. Joe looks at the tablet and says that he suggests they talk. Tell him what this has to do with Gina, or he'll kill him where he stands. Bucky told him enough, or at least enough to get him moving without a fight. And as Bucky looks over the files more, he knows that Fury put him on this extraction for a reason, and he'll get suspicious and he'll start digging. So, the operation files for the Tarasova extraction never once mentioned the doctor's daughter, Tesla Tarasova. But he knows that Tesla was taken into custody by the KGB, by the men who ran the Red Room. He spun this whole operation as a way to expose a cover-up, claimed that Tesla only recently disappeared from the ops file, told Robards that finding Tesla led them to Autry's killer. Damn you, Nick. Their best lead was Colonel Konrad Petrov, aka Father Hammer, his commanding officer during the Tarasova recovery. When programs like the Red Room were crushed under the falling of the Iron Curtain, Father Hammer scurried from the wreckage. He took the training of professional killers to the private sector. He created the orphanage. Only the top of the food chain seems to know that it exists or how to find it. Men like Joe Robards. The orphanage's island fortress is likely where they'll find Hammer. And if they're lucky, he'll give them a lead as to what happened to Tesla. As Bucky sneaks through the jungle, he reaches the orphanage and sees one of the teachers chained up and a child holding a torch, and he asks, "Is that one of the lieutenants, Joe?" Joe radios in that judging by how much the little one seemed to hate him, he'd say so. As the patrol walks up behind Bucky, he holds his hands up stating, "Good, let's go talk to them then." And as he's brought into the camp, the child soldier yells that it took them months to capture this man, their former master, to break him. But he dishonors them with surrender. He spits in their faces. However, the rules must remain. To live, to graduate, they must earn it as the students of these halls have always earned it, with blood. As the children unchain their former master, the large man charges at Bucky, but Bucky grabs him, rolling back, throwing the man to the side. The two exchange blows, but eventually the man bites down on Bucky's arm with his iron jaws. While pinning Bucky, the man pulls his arm back, getting ready to punch, but Bucky grabs a fistful of sand and throws it into the man's eyes, giving him enough time to end the fight. As Bucky positions himself, the man begs him, "Plush, comrade, give me release." Bucky hesitates for a moment and then releases the man. No. The child runs up asking, Master Murdermouth?" And Bucky tells her, "Enough of this, where is he?" The girl says that he's dead. She killed him when she returned, when she freed them. The electric ghost. Bucky quietly says Tesla's name, thinking back to the day that he met her when she was a young girl. She was in the house where he shot her father, coloring a picture of Captain America and Bucky Barnes. Later, inside of an AIM data hub, Bucky goes through the computer looking up any information on this new name, the Electric Ghost, and he comes across no traces of Tesla Tarasova. But as Bucky sifts through the information, he says that this is exactly what they wanted, isn't it? The chance to show them that they can't just get rid of them, to prove that Old Man Fury still holds all the cards. They used Bucky, they lied. Fury tells Bucky that he has no information to give him. He suspected Tarasova, but he knew what that meant. He had no choice. S.H.I.E.L.D. needed Bucky Barnes back in the game, and like it or not, so did he. Whatever choice he had about that is long gone. The SS Tempest was S.H.I.E.L.D.'s newest state-of-the-art helicarrier. This morning, she was on maneuvers over the Bering Sea. Champagne is still drying on her bow, with all four of her rotors folded in on themselves, vanished into nothing, taking a couple thousand brave soldiers with her. Operation Confidant. Life model decoys in the deepest, darkest of cover, positioning them with some of the world's most dangerous players, units they depend on as stabilizing influences for highly sensitive information, at least they did, before all of them went totally bananas. 6 world leaders dead within 15 minutes of each other. A wildfire of global destabilization lit nearly instantaneously. Just when things couldn't get any scarier, cue their top secret Gamma Warhead Depot off the coast of Madripoor, and at that moment an image of Tesla appears with her announcement. My dear caveman, allow me to address you just this once, in the absurd manner of your custom. Consider this message a formal courtesy. The dignity you never afforded those under your heel. What you have just witnessed is the blossoming of your horrible labors, a bitter harvest grown in ash and nurtured by blood. The poison of its fruits now coursing through your veins. Struggle will only quicken death's pace. Simply take what comfort you might have in the knowledge of what comes is inevitable. I am Tesla Tarasova, the voice of the Electric Ghost, and these are your last rites. Fury tells Bucky, "We're kinda crippled here, unable to trust ourselves, and we've got no clue why she's doing this." Bucky tells him it's because of the orphans. Hammer turned those children into killers, auctioned them off like cattle to all of their enemies and all of their friends. Burrowed them so deep under S.H.I.E.L.D.'s own skin that they forgot that some of them were even in there. Fury says that it doesn't matter the reasons now. He's the only card that they've got left to play, the Winter Soldier. He's dead to the world and no one knows that he exists. She'll never see him coming. They have one hope, one lead, the satellite she stole. Right now it's cloaked. But there ain't no way to sustain that energy it needs in that way. She'll have to gas it up. The surest bet is along the Van Allen belts, same place that created the fantastic Damned 4. They'll have a small window when Tesla uncloaks to refuel with cosmic rays, and if she's got a mole in their ops, hell, we might as well RSVP first. Bucky and Joe get to work getting everything set up for his jump to the satellite. But in order for him to return, he'll have to use some of the cosmic rays to get back. Once Bucky is in the radiation belt, his chance of returning will be unlikely, so he's going to have to make all of this count. After the port, Bucky starts taking out the workers on the outside of the satellite, making sure that none have a chance to call it in. As he sneaks inside, he sees Tesla working on something, and in the blink of an eye, she vanishes. Bucky begins to cough, and Tesla tells him that in his haste of getting on here, he breathed deeply the nanopath cloud. Her telepathic micro-arming now scours his mind. His only hope for mercy lies in the truth. End the struggle, give her his master's secrets, tell her what they know, and bring an end to his own agony. Bucky tries to shoot, but Tesla tells him that he's a poor little bug, never stood a chance, and then shoots him twice in the chest. Her psychic gun disappears, and she goes on stating that the cosmic rays are a celestial gift, the fire of the gods, a power limited only by the scope of their imagination. Its secrets are hers. Soon, its full power will be at her disposal. She will no longer play their savage game. Now, once more, her final offer of mercy. Who are you? She peers into Bucky's mind, seeing herself as a child back then, and stands up. You're alive. Later, Tesla examines Bucky's metal arm, telling him that it's a mass of scar tissue, a hemorrhaging maze, a formidable defense, but her nanopaths have done their job well. He has been their soldier for a very long time, hasn't he? That's right, she knows what he's done. But of all that he has widowed, why should she matter to him? An image of Natasha appears, and Tesla says, there it is, a little broken glass hiding in the sand, a widow of your own. Is she your penance? The mistake that you don't dare make again? Ridiculous. You're behaving like one of them, a slave to the past, afraid of tomorrow. But your true fear isn't that you can't live with what you've done, it's that you can. We're so much more alike than you know, perhaps too alike. I've bent the power cosmic to my will, and I hold the world beneath my heel. All to show men like you what it's like to live without fear, to live without limit. The executioner's axe falls on us all, and when it does, we are no more, less than a memory. Your masters have used that knowledge to subjugate us, to cast a shadow on us of death and doom, to make us afraid. They have convinced you that I am your responsibility. They want me to hate you for killing my father. You want it. Yet, if you had never crossed my path, where would I be? Shackled to a desk? Imprisoned in a factory? Glued to my couch watching television? Certainly, I would not be here, on the verge of limitless power. Tesla reaches for Bucky, but as he whines and tells her to stop, he feels his wounds healing. She says that she has shown them all that the world below is chaos, a theater of the absurd, reminding those big men how tiny their little lives truly are. And now here, at the heart of the collapsing star, the beginning will meet the end. Here, we're more alive than anyone's ever been. You're free now, James! I release you of your pain. She leans in, kissing him, pulling away as Bucky asks if that is a cosmic cube. She tells him no. No, dear James, the cube is the power for the sake of power, a blunt instrument, the shape into which simple men would hammer the world, the kind of men who sought to make weapons of my father's tools, those who would have made him their pawn, who caged his brilliant mind. Father Hammer pulled me from its orbit, stoked me into what was required to overcome the fear that my father faced, to better him, and so I have, in every way. Tesla reaches for the bright yellow object, stating that this is the Terrasova Tesseract. Using the power of the cosmic rays, I have built a bridge across time and space, and now I will burn it down. Tesla begins to weave through time, looking at all of the places that wronged her, but Bucky grabs her, stating that she needs to stop. She is better than this. What good will all of this do? Tesla knocks him away, stating that he speaks like a child. This is freedom from regret. With the cruel momentum of time, she will smother these monsters in their cradles. 1,000 deaths for each life that they have destroyed. Soon, everything flashes again, and Bucky sees himself staring down the scope of where Dr. Terrasova was before he pulled the trigger. He pulls the rifle down, stating that this isn't some game, and through Father Hammer, Tesla walks up, stating, "Ah, but it is! It always has been!" Hammer was here, watching you, judging the skill with which he would ravage and ruin. How many has this moment destroyed? How much senseless violence and pain has it caused? Yet everything changes if you don't act. The electric ghost will never be. Surely you must see your duty done, yes? Bucky says that he's sorry. He should have the strength to stop this, but he has to live with it. It's moments like this that made him stronger, opened his eyes to how fragile all of this was, how much it all means. She can't fix the past. She can only search for the strength to change the future. Tesla tells him that she will show him strength. This moment made her, joined them, allowed her the mercy to cut the strings. Bucky throws himself into Tesla, yelling, "No!" And as the two tumble down the hill, Tesla grabs a branch, beating Bucky over the head with it. And after several swings, Bucky holds up his arm, telling her that her father is in that cabin. She could see his face. She could hear his voice. He takes his knife, slamming it into the stump beside him, asking, "Is this what you choose?" And Tesla looks at the image of herself as Hammer, and she yells, "No, no!" She takes Bucky's arm, smashing the Tesseract. And soon the entire satellite begins to shake and crumble. The psychic world that they are in is gone. Everything is fading away. Bucky yells, "Where are the escape pods? They have to get away from all of this." And Tesla says that it's no use. The energy is expanding too rapidly. She can delay it, activate the failsafe signal, turn it in on itself, but the window is too small. There'd be no escape. Bucky asks, "What? You want me to leave you here to be sucked into a black hole?" Tesla says that this is war against soldiers. She won't see this work harm anyone else. There is no choice. This is the price. Bucky picks up his arm and tells her no. There's always a choice. His arm is rigged with a signal to jump him home, but with the distortion of the radiation belt, he could materialize in a mountain or at the bottom of an ocean. Her intangibility shroud gives them both a shot. Activate the signal and then they jump together. They have a choice. Take it with him. As Tesla takes his hand, they appear high above the ocean, taking scraps of debris with them through the jump. They plunge into the waters, and as Bucky reaches out, he can't reach for Tesla's hand. So later that evening, he sits at one of the local bars and Joe comes up asking if it's sunrise or sunset, having a hard time telling the difference these days. Where's Tesla? Bucky says that he isn't sure. Alive, escaped, out of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s grasp at least. And Joe sits down telling him, good, and then he takes up the tablet with a picture of Gina on it. Bucky begins to say something, but Joe stops him. No, you're driving right now. And if you aren't careful, you might drive right off a cliff. But that's exactly what you want, isn't it? Whatever's eating you is just dying for something to chew on. No, it won't matter how dull or rusty. You're not the type to lay down the sword. Joe takes out his gun and places it on the table, going on about how they all knew before Gina was his work. That if his mission was all that there ever was, if he died while doing it, then so be it. Gina was the first person to accept and understand that. She never once asked him to change. She didn't have to. The moment that he met her, he knew that she was different. Joe spins the gun, pointing it at himself. Scared the hell out of me. So I ran from who I was, from who I wanted to be. Right back into the arms of who I was. To whoever the hell they wanted me to be. I hadn't talked to Gina in months when she died, not really. Not since the day I asked Fury to put me back undercover. I blamed myself for what we'd lost. Turned all of our mistakes into my own. I took Gina's example and made it into an excuse. See, Gina Autry wasn't a victim. She was one of them. Wore the same weight around her neck, and when it felt heavy, she didn't let it drag her under or wait for someone to lift it off of her. She stood up. You got that? Bucky tells him yeah. And Joe tells him you better. And he flips him off. Joe Bard's out, and he leaves. Bucky looks off into the sunset after his time-sprawling adventure with a cosmic cube, thinking of what Tesla said. She built a bridge across time and space. Freedom from regret. From the cruel momentum of time, and for a moment, he was with Natasha. And next, he was touching the Tesseract.
And there you have it, The Winter Soldier. What did you think of today's full story? Let me know in the comments down below. Like and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.